Okay, now we're going to look at a very different type of artist. We're going back a little bit, of course, and once again, it's an artist who lives just into the 20th century, but only a few years, so most of her work is going to be 19th century. Her name is Lilly Martin Spencer. Lilly Martin is her maiden name. Spencer is her married name. And she is an American genre painter. And I really want to put the emphasis on she's an American genre painter. And we'll hear a little more about that. What she paints and what she's very well known for are scenes of everyday life. And these are to appeal to sort of the middle class, mass public of America in the 19th century. They combine sentiment, emotion, feeling, and humor, and her themes are themes of family and domestic life. Her paintings were very well known, not always just for the painting, but because they were reproduced in engravings and lithographs. They were put on things like calendars, and so the images themselves were very popular. But she always had financial difficulties. They didn't have copyright in those days, and sometimes she would have to sell the design or the rights for the design for a very small amount of money. $10, which of course was worth more then than it is now, but still today when you reproduce things you get royalties. They didn't do that. So the engravers might be making money from these, and people would be seeing her works. I don't know if they knew her name, but they, these would be sort of famous works, but she wasn't getting paid for all the reproductions. And so there were financial difficulties. I sometimes think of her as kind of a 19th century Norman Rockwell because of the type of themes that she's portraying, the use of humor, the use of feeling, the use of Americana. The differences, of course, is that Norman Rockwell was a highly paid illustrator, highly paid, and received royalties and received a good salary and became very wealthy. Lilly Martin Spencer doesn't reap the financial rewards. Well, she's actually, I said American, and she is, but she was actually born in England. She was, when she was a child, her parents emigrated to the U.S., and her parents were idealistic reformers. They were abolitionists. They were supporters of equality for women, and they were supporters of the temperance movement. So once again, we often do see, and you'll be seeing this into the 20th century, that some of the women who are able to become artists have a family background that supports the idea that, a woman can create. The family moves out west to Marietta, Ohio, which is the general area of Cincinnati. Cincinnati is the big city that's nearby and becomes very important to her art. So she moves to Marietta, Ohio, and her family encourages her. Instead of saying, don't draw on the wall, they say, go ahead and draw on the wall. At age 17, she drew charcoal murals on the walls of her home. And they actually charged admission for people to go in like it was a gallery, and I guess this was a big thing in rural Ohio. Her father, said, yes, we want you to have art lessons. So he took her to the nearest big city, which was Cincinnati, where she could study art and had lessons with a local artist who was an animal painter, James Henry Beard. Her first exhibit was in an Episcopal church in Cincinnati, and she charged 25% entrance fee, and the money was to raise money for her art education. And the local, papers had very favorable things to say about her work. So here we see a self-portrait of her about this time. It's a really kind of penetrating self-portrait, too. It's very different than a lot of her other work. She's a very interesting pose where she's really looking intently, frontally, but not exactly at the viewer. Her eyes are rolled up. So you have this feeling of a very intense person. character coming through. Now, she became kind of a local artistic celebrity, this young lady who was so talented, and pretty much the leading wealthy man in town. His home now is a museum. His name was Nicholas Longworth, and he offered to pay for her training in Boston and in Europe. And Martin refused. And I keep wondering, why did she refuse? And I actually did talk to a curator in Cincinnati who told me a little bit about Longworth that I didn't know. We wondered, she didn't want to leave her family? Maybe she didn't want to go so far away. Could that have been it? Could have just been, personal reasons, family ties. I've often wondered if she didn't, she'd say, no, I'm going to be an American artist, so, I don't want to have this European training. Or, and this is what the curator told me, Longworth was a very controlling person. And he put down conditions. He would pay for her training, but she was not allowed to exhibit or sell her work during the years that she was studying, which means she'd be completely dependent on him. She couldn't earn a living. She pretty much had to do anything he said just to survive. And I don't mean anything, immoral here. That wasn't the point. Evidently, Longworth could be very overbearing. She just didn't want to do it. I've often wondered what would have happened if she could have accepted him, if he hadn't been so hard-nosed about not selling her work or not exhibiting her work, and if she could have had this training. I think it probably would have made her a different kind of artist. And would that have been better or worse? One thing, you'll notice that a lot of her figures, we haven't seen them yet, but you'll see that they have fairly large heads. One of the first things that would have happened with European training would have got the proportions to be more ideal, more correct. So that may have improved the work. On the other hand, they wouldn't have been interested in the Americana subjects at all. And she would have been, she would have had to have painted totally different things. So maybe she would have been a very unhappy artist too, painting what other people were telling her to do, rather than following what she felt she should do as an artist. In 1844, she married Benjamin Rush Spencer. They were married for the rest of their lives, and that was 46 years. They had 13 children, of whom 7 lived to adulthood. So you can see one reason that they were financial difficulties. Lilly Martin Spencer becomes the breadwinner for the family. And it's totally unusual. He becomes a house husband. He supports her career rather than her giving up her career to support his, which we do see very often with women artists, that when they get married, either their production goes down, or the husband says, no, you shouldn't be working for a living, you shouldn't be creating this art, and they do social or domestic things instead. So this is very, very unusual, especially for the 19th century. I just think Benjamin Rush Spencer must have been a really remarkable guy. For one thing, he must have had, the kind of ego that wasn't threatened by his wife earning the living. So they evidently had a rather wonderful marriage, although fraught with certain financial difficulties. He helped with the household duties. He helped with the manual things about painting, framing her paintings, stretching the canvases, and undoubtedly, helping with the business end, which gave her more time to paint. And a lot of her paintings, there is a catalog, which incidentally, I purchased it for a considerable amount of money, just so I'd have some Lilly Martin Spencer background. And then I found out that the ETSU library actually does own this. I think it's in the archives. But the catalog of her show, that's the 20th century show, is called The Joy of Sentiment. So that's how she's often looked at, is a 19th century sentimental artist. And of course, in the 20th century, we look at sentiment and we say, oh, it's so corny. And I will be frank, this is the kind of art, I was never shown any Lilly Martin Spencer. I never heard of her until I started doing the research for this course. But this is the kind of art that when I was an undergraduate, we were taught to look down on. You're supposed to think of the modern movements of abstraction and new changes in originality, and anything that was particularly realistic and also particularly sentimental was denigrated. So it's interesting. I'm having to unlearn some prejudices of education to try to look at this in a 19th century context and think about what she was doing. And I think one of the things she was doing was being an American artist and promoting the joys and love of family and children, which would, of course, have appealed to the 19th century audience. And so here we see this lovely picture, yeah, like I said, it's very sentimental, with the father and the mother looking down at their two small children who are peacefully sleeping. They're not making a lot of noise at this point. So it's all domestic bliss and domestic happiness. Her husband often did serve as the model. So this may be a picture of him. The wife here seems to be a bit idealized. Some of their servants, when they could afford servants, also were the models. And she created some works of art that were really, we might not recognize the originality of them, but they really were at the time. This is called Peeling Onions. And as you can see, you have the cook chopping up the onions, and her eyes are watering, and she's rubbing her eyes. Something that is domestic, that we can understand, that we can relate to, and it has a touch of humor. Incidentally, it's when you get over the subject and you realize, this is beautifully painted. The three-dimensional quality of the figure, the shape of the arms. I've seen 19th century pictures and where the arms just sort of look amorphous. She really has a sense of them. And of course the still life. She did occasionally paint still life. So here she's created a genre picture with a very realistic woman, a little bit of humor, and a still life. You've got all sorts of things there. You're looking up close to it. Seeing the tears on her eyes. You can see this is finely painted, actually. I haven't seen this painting. I've seen some other works of hers, but I'm looking here from the reproduction. Here's another one, about the same time, but maybe a year earlier. The Jolly Washerwoman. Washing was, of course, a very, very heavy occupation, and most women who could afford to, even if they weren't wealthy, just ordinary middle-class women might hire somebody to do this heavy washing. So this is the washerwoman, and instead of showing, oh, how sad it is that this woman has to do this heavy manual labor, it's showing her as smiling at you and what can I say, the I don't know, dignity of work, but someone who they're doing manual labor, but yeah, they've got a presence to them. So she's smiling right at us. I mean, we look at, it's just like we came in and are seeing her. Very realistic detail, once again, wonderful three-dimensional quality to the human form, to the still life that's laid out. And a kind of complex still life, as you can see, it's on different levels. With the lower bench and then the higher table in the background. It's a new subject for genre painting in the United States. Instead of showing men about their activities, it's showing women's life, things within the domestic sphere. I mean, you could just see somebody say, oh, why would you want to do a picture of a washerwoman? I mean, that's not very lofty, that's not very important. So by choosing these subjects, she's choosing subjects that people can relate to, certainly women particularly, but anybody who who's who's aware of the work that goes on behind the scenes. And she's really creating a new type of American art with the woman's sphere. The reproduction is not very good. I took this off the web. I had taken some of these, and it was a very small image. But I just thought this was kind of fun because even though you can't really see the painting quality here, you can sort of see what's going on. They have humorous names. I mean, she gave them titles. This is called Shake Hands. And so here you see the cook, once again, smiling at us, with her hand out to shake, and her hands are covered with flour. Some of these things, the people look very friendly, and there's this egalitarian characteristic. I mean, here we're supposed to go, we're in the art gallery or whatever, but here you're in the house, and we're supposed to shake hands with the cook, whose hands are full of flour. Well, it's that egalitarian idea. It's women's work. But it's also, real stuff. And so you do have that kind of I would say, American character again. The idea that you might shake hands with a cook rather than all of the class distinctions. And she did a pair of pictures, and she sometimes would repeat these because when they sold, like I say, you reproduce them, she doesn't get the rights. So a very popular picture she might paint again. So there's, I think, several of these. This is called Young Husband First Marketing. Her husband is the model, and it's a very humorous picture of the young husband who wants to help out his wife. They've just gotten married, and he's going to do the marketing to help her. Isn't that nice? Only he's a bit of a klutz. The chickens are falling out of the basket. He's already dropped some eggs. The parts of their dinner are ending up on the pavement. And it's also a rainy, blowy day, so it's slick pavement. So she's showing weather. She's showing people who are sort of bracing themselves against the wind and the rain that's coming down. She's got this little guy smiling and sort of laughing at the poor husband who's just trying to do a good job and kind of messing up. Does this sound like a situation comedy? I mean, that is kind of what it is. It serves the same niche, essentially. But even though the husband is the center of the humor, he's not the only one. I'll show you in a minute. This is the version that's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So she does repeat them. Sometimes there's a little bit differences in the background or the... So we have a pair of pictures, and unfortunately there was an exhibition of this at the Hunter Museum of Art in Chattanooga, which has one of the copies of the young husband, which I was able to photograph. Unfortunately, I just did not get over. I was just too busy. And so I didn't get to see the companion piece, which once again, it's a small picture taken from the web, so it may not be as good detail. But the companion piece of this, he's not just making fun of the husband, he's also got the young wife for stew. So here's the young wife. She's never cooked before, evidently. Maybe she had servants to help her. And she's trying to cook, and she's messing up too. And so you have these sort of humorous facial expressions. Is that a friend or a servant or whatever? Just obviously this is not working out. So it's good humored. You're sort of like, we've all been there kind of thing. But you get over those troubles. And you can have some domestic bliss again. Here come the children. Incidentally, from the other picture that I've seen of Lilly Martin Spencer, this may be a portrait or a idealized portrait. It may look something like her, the woman here, and the husband once again looks like her husband Ben. You can see he's getting older. From the first marketing up here in 1854 to 4 years later. Of course, his face, he's he's giving you a dramatic rendition of the fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. And the title of this is Fee, Fo, Fum, and you will remember that the giant in Jack and the Beanstalk says, Fee, Fi, Fo, Fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman, be he alive or be he dead. I'll grind his bones to make my bread. So Dad is telling the story, and the young girls are, one of them is very rapt, the other one looks a little worried, and so you have this love of the family, the kind of subject that somebody say, oh, that's not very important. But obviously it is for Lily Martin Spencer and her audience. Family, is important. And she's showing, an ideal family, and you never see her showing them quarreling or anything like that. Domestic happiness, and here, the just conversations piece. In both cases, the father and the mother have a young baby, and they're just very, very happy with this. And so they look on happily, or father is trying to play with the baby as mother holds it.